Hey, what's up? My name is Daniela and welcome to a new video. So in this video we're going to be doing autumnal things and we're going to be reading witchy books. So it's kind of my ultimate fall vlog, and this will come out in November because this year I'm actually prolonging the Halloween, scary, witchy season, whatever you want to call it. One reason is that in October I was still reading other things and I have quite a few witchy books or just autumnal books that I want to get to, and I will be only able to get to a small portion of them, but still I'm prolonging the season. Also, I'm not feeling particularly festive yet, so that's a second reason. But yeah, I really want to get to at least 3 of the witchy books on my TBR. And also in this vlog you will see me doing some autumnal activities like going for pumpkin spice latte from indie cafes and baking and stuff like that. But let's look at the books that I want to read in this vlog. So the first one is Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. So in this book we follow our main character called Emma Harlow, and she grew up in this magical town where there are several magic families among normal people, and she belonged to one of the families that had what might seem like less power. They were kind of the chroniclers, so yeah, they didn't do like flashy magic, and she always felt like her family wasn't as valued as some of the other families. And then also when she was finishing high school, a guy from one of the most powerful magic families in town broke her heart. So Emmy went to the university in Chicago and she made a life for herself there, and she kind of wants to forget everything that is connected to this town. But there is this huge magical competition that is coming up, and in this the most powerful families compete with each other, and her family is traditionally the arbiter. And so she kind of, out of obligation, returns to the town. When she left town, she basically left the power behind, and it returns when she comes back. And the guy that broke her heart is going to be one of the competitors in this competition. And when Emmy comes back, she also finds out that Gareth, the guy who broke her heart, also broke her best friend's heart, and he also, like at the same time, was seeing this other girl who also will be competing in the competition. So these girls come together and come up with a kind of a revenge plan against Gareth, and in the process Emmy starts feeling something for Talia, which is the girl that Gareth was also seeing. I've been super intrigued about this one for some time, and I also absolutely adore the cover. The second book I want to read in this vlog is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. So this is also a witchy book, but not as much a romance as a horror, as I found out a little bit too late. So we follow Annie, who is 30, and she has just been dumped by her boyfriend, and she basically feels like she has no other choice than to move upstate to upstate New York, to a small town, and take a teaching position there, because she feels like she can no longer afford to live on her own in New York City. And there she starts a new job and she meets this very mysterious, very beautiful woman, and everyone in the town kind of seem to be afraid of her. And then weird things start happening and she's like super drawn to this mysterious woman, and yeah, things go from there. And my third choice is Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch by Sarah Hawley. So this is book 2 in the Glimmerfall series. I read book 1, which is called A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon, last year. Really enjoyed it, so I'm continuing with the series. So in this series it's basically close to the normal world, but there are witches and other creatures in the world, and then there's also a separate world that is the demon plane. And in the first book our main character has a romance with a demon who she accidentally summons, and then he cannot leave. And in the second one we follow the best friend of the main character, and then also one of the demons that was kind of cruel in the first book. So I'm honestly a little bit worried how he's going to be redeemed, but I hope it's going to work. So those are the books. So let's get to reading and let's get to doing autumnal things.
life is like trick or treat, and that's all.
So I thought that I would update you during reading of this book. So first I was reading Payback's Witch by Lana Harper, but that's not what happens, because I did kind of my typical things where I made very little progress in this one, and then I read like half the book very quickly. So unfortunately I wasn't able to update you during my read, but nonetheless I'm here to tell you my thoughts. So first of all, I went into this thinking that it's going to be a witchy romance, and I would say that the romance played much smaller role than I expected. So I explained what this book is about. So we have Emmy, and she grew up in this town with her magical family, where there are a few other magical families who have more powers than her family. And then she left for university, and she basically rarely came back. She made her own life in Chicago, and she wants to forget her past in the town where like this guy broke her heart. But she's coming back to be the arbiter of this competition. And this competition was a pretty big part of the book, I would say. I mean, it wasn't like the main thing. Well, it kind of was. It was a substantial plot line. So we learned quite a lot about the world, about the rules, and also eventually about like the history of the magical families, and I found all of that very enjoyable. The way that the small town was portrayed was almost a little bit over the top, like too perfect, too picturesque. So I don't know, like I couldn't really picture it that well, or it didn't seem that appealing because it just didn't seem that realistic. And another reason why the romance wasn't the main thing was that we followed Emmy's character growth and kind of reckoning with things quite a lot. She just had a lot of kind of pros and cons to consider when she was thinking about if she wants to go back to her Chicago life or if she should stay in this small town where she grew up longer. There were like many factors. So like she had a whole life in Chicago, work, friends, you know, the city life activities, and then in the small town she has her family, her best friend, and it's where she can feel her magic. So she feels a special connection to the town, so that's also a big factor. And then now she also met Talia, and you know, they started something, so that's also a factor. I really liked following Emmy as the main character. I can understand the complexities of growing up in a small town and then leaving and making your whole life elsewhere. And I also really loved following Talia as the love interest. So she's this badass witch who has a tough exterior, and yeah, she's super fierce, but she also has a softer inside, and she likes to cook and bake for people. At first I didn't love some things about her, but there was also an element of character development with her. But because there were quite a few things going on with this book and the romance didn't get that much page time, I felt like the romance wasn't developed that well. Like they didn't spend so much time together. There was one sex scene, but it was kind of like half to black. That's something I feel like I very rarely encounter, because like usually it's either like full fade to black or it's like full on, you know, everything that's happening. And this was kind of like we got halfway and then it got fade to black. So in the end it didn't fully meet my expectations and I had some minor complaints, but otherwise I really enjoyed this one, and I was very pleased to find out that it's a series. And so in the second book we will follow one of the competitors that was competing in the competition, and also Talia's sister. So yeah, excited to continue with the series, and yeah, I'm giving it 4 stars. I started reading Cackle by Rachel Harrison. Actually on page 130, so yeah, a bit into it. And yeah, there was a minor misunderstanding with me and this book. So, you know, I was kind of gathering books for a witchy look, and I wanted to read primarily witchy romance. So I knew that the other two are witchy romances, and then I kind of saw this one and, you know, I got it, it's a witchy book. And then the synopsis I kind of skimmed because I like going into books not knowing much, and it kind of talked about a woman who breaks up with a man, or he breaks up with her, and then she moves somewhere else and she becomes kind of obsessed with this woman. So I think it's an understandable mistake for me to think that it's a romance, but apparently it's not. It's a horror, and that's a tiny problem because I don't deal well with horrors. Like, yeah, I just can't deal. So it's going to be an interesting experience, I think. So yeah, Annie has been dumped by her boyfriend and she moves to this small town in upstate New York. She started a new job as a teacher, and she met this beautiful woman called Sophie, who is super charming, but everyone in town seems to be afraid of her. And she instantly becomes interested in befriending Annie, and so they become friends. They do things together, and Annie like goes for a sleepover at Sophie's house, which is like this mansion, and creepy things are happening there. Like it is starting. There are a lot of spiders everywhere, and Annie is like a little bit freaked out, but she's also like, okay, there's clearly something weird about this woman, but like I need a friend. Like I don't have any friends, and like my ex-boyfriend like won't talk to me, or like, yeah, he doesn't miss me and I miss him, so like I'm going to be best friends with this weird woman and it's going to be okay, hopefully. So yeah, at this point I don't know where this is going. Like we kind of know the setup, but I still don't know where it's going. Like, is it going to be like the horror of the kind that like she's what? Like, is she going to survive? Like, what's going to happen? Also, I don't read many horrors, so, you know, I don't know how it usually goes. Like, is it like she's going to be in grave danger but she's going to survive? I don't know. At first I didn't love the writing style because it's very staccato, very, and like extremely cynical. The main character is like kind of depressed and really cynical. I will read you some lines because like I tabbed them because they are quite something. The words hang there, slow and bloated, as an uncle after Thanksgiving dinner. As a new teacher, I ready myself for the peculiar cruelty of these hormone-addled, angst-driven, evil meat sacks. Like, okay. I hope you like teaching. It's also kind of one of the plot points that is slowly emerging, that she basically only became teacher because her mom died when she was little, and her mom was a teacher, so she kind of chose this career kind of as a given. But yeah, it's unclear if she actually wants to do it, so Sophie is kind of like starting to push her to go after her dreams, but yeah, maybe like Annie isn't sure what she actually wants. She's kind of the main character that's like, I'm so uninteresting, and yeah, my life story is boring, and like there's nothing to me. So yeah, she's surprised that Sophie is taking interest in her, but yeah, she's in a hard spot. Hello, I have finished Cackle, and let's do an update with the migraine, because I would like to wrap up this vlog today, ideally. But okay, a little side note on migraines, because those are bigger horrors than this was. So today I woke up with a really bad migraine, and so I took like the only medicine that I have tried except for like normal ibuprofen. So I woke up with a really bad pain, which is really annoying because like you're waking up and like you have to get up sooner than you would like, because like I need to drink something and eat something in order to be able to take the pill. So I took sumatriptan, and that is a drug that when I take it, it's very much like I took the drugs and the drugs are working, if you know the sound, because it makes me like incredibly drowsy. So basically and you can't like take it all of the time, so I take it very rarely, and then I can only take it when I have absolutely nothing going on that day and I don't have to do anything, which fortunately today is a rare day when I don't have to do anything. It's a Sunday and I don't have work or anything. So yeah, I took it, and then basically either right away or sometime during the day, like it makes me so drowsy that I go take a nap, and that's like a coma-like nap that takes multiple hours, sometimes like most of the day. So yeah, I took the comatose nap, so now I woke up, the pain is gone for now, which is good. Like usually it works well, but also like it doesn't work if I don't take it super quickly. So like if I woke up with a migraine at like 4 a.m. and I would try to sleep, and then it would be like multiple hours, it might not work. So yeah, there are like some conditions that you have to meet in order to work, but it's working today, so that's good. And I need to set up a neurology appointment, but I think that waiting time will be months and they won't tell me anything. But I don't know, maybe they could give me like some other drug to try, I don't know. In the last few weeks I had a lot of like headaches that didn't develop into migraines, and I was like chewing candied ginger for that, and that kind of helps, especially like for the nausea. And yeah, that helped in a way that it didn't develop into a migraine. But this morning, yeah, I had to bring out the big ones. But anyway, cackle. So this went into a different direction than I expected. Turns out that I didn't have to be afraid. So basically the most scary scenes were in the first half, when we still like didn't fully know what's going on, and then yeah, there weren't that many scary scenes. So if you want something that is only slightly scary, I don't even think this qualifies as a horror. Some people also said that on Goodreads. It's more of a contemporary with paranormal elements. And I think this book is quite divisive, because you can rightfully not like the characters because they are not likable. Like the main character, like she is in a really bad place. So she is whiny, you know, she is thinking how horrible it is to be 30 and single, and she has a low self-esteem, and yeah, she's doing self-destructive things, all of that. And then she gets into this friendship with Sophie, and Sophie is also flawed. Like she's very controlling. She's kind of doesn't treat the people in the town that well, etc. So at first I was thinking, okay, so Annie went from this not so good relationship with Sam to this very controlling friendship with Sophie, like okay. But as the story went on, there was actually a lot of character development, well, more near the end, on Annie's side. I don't know if that much on Sophie's side, yeah, maybe a little bit. And yeah, their friendship actually ended up kind of helping, even though it was controlling and a little bit messed up at parts. At the back it says that it's a feminist tale, and by the middle of the story I didn't see it, but then yeah, by the end you definitely can see that. And I ended up really liking the messages and the feminist elements of it. You could say that the feminist metaphors of, like, let's say Sophie, like a woman that is different, and so the society doesn't accept her, is like a little bit on the nose. But yeah, I really liked it, and I kind of keep thinking about it. Obviously I will avoid spoilers, but near the end there was a scene when I was like, oh my god, is it going there? And then it didn't, but still, like, the ending, the whole ending was a really great part. And the very ending, like how it ended, kind of in a full circle way, I also really like that. I still think it would have been better if Annie and Sophie kissed, but yeah, it is not a romance. The writing of this one is definitely an acquired taste, but I got really used to it, and I think it actually suited the story well. So all in all, I think this might be a 5-star for me now. Maybe like when some time has passed I would lower it to 4, because it's not like an all-time favorite, but it was a book that so pleasantly surprised me, and yeah, I think it was really thought-provoking. Also, if you can't handle spiders, you might struggle with this one a little bit. I don't mind spiders, and I don't think like the scenes were like horrible or anything, but I was just saying. And now I'm currently reading A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch by Sarah Hawley, and I'm really enjoying this one. I think I'm enjoying it a little bit more than the first one in the series, and it's a bit hard to talk about it when, like, I guess kind of knowing the plot of this one kind of spoils the first one, but also like we don't read romance for the plot. So basically what I would say is we have a demon named Astaroth, and he has a nemesis demon and he's after him. And Astaroth appears on Earth in a kind of vulnerable position, and he has amnesia. So he remembers that he's a demon and some things from his past, but he doesn't remember the crucial moments that happened like before he appeared on Earth. So basically he forgot how to like defeat his nemesis because he has some dirt on him, but he doesn't remember. And Caladia finds him when like he's in this vulnerable position, and she helps him. Basically they go on a quest together to, you know, find a witch that might like help with Astaroth memory, so they can get like the other demon like out of their way, because now the demon is also after Caladia, so she kind of has to help Astaroth. And so they go on this road trip. There's also camping, so they're spending their holidays together, and it's so fun. This series is so over the top. Like once I finish, I will give you some examples because I have tapped some, but yeah, there is a lot of like ridiculous one-liners or comments, but also like I'm already on page 288. And there were just some really good discussions, and you know, I was just thinking the words men written by women because yeah, I really like him. Well, the premise of these books and the series is kind of that, you know, in the first one the love interest was also a demon, and he was a dick at the beginning because of the way like he was brought up, and so this is similar. So like both of the demons, both in book 1 and 2, I kind of dig in the beginning, and you know, it's a fantasy world, so like they did some really messed up things, but then there's a lot of character development, and yeah, I'm really liking the relationship between Astaroth and Caladia. Caladia is another badass character who is a personal trainer. She's very strong, she knows how to fight, and she actually likes to fight. It's kind of her like way to blow off steam. And her mother is incredibly controlling, and you know, she's kind of a politician, and she wanted Caladia to be girly and polite and everything, and that's not who Caladia is. So basically her mother is pretty horrible to her, saying all of the time what a disappointment she was. This is actually very similar as it was in the first book, because the main character's mom was also like really disappointed in her. But yeah, in their case there was some development. We haven't seen any development in here, so it might be the case of like they actually have to go on no contact maybe, which they have talked about. And yeah, I think that's also nice to see in books. Well, not nice, but you know what I mean. So I have like 100 pages to read in this book, so I would like to finish it today if my body permits me to do it. I have finished it, yay! So this will probably be 5 stars. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed this volume more than the first one. Maybe if I went back to the first one now, I would enjoy it more. Basically, in the first one, as I said, this series is kind of over the top, and in the first one I wasn't used to the over the topness, and I think in this book it was a little bit more nuanced maybe, or maybe I just got used to it. But yeah, over the top, amazing. There's also the factor of this being a series, so by this time like I know a lot of the characters and we see them again, and I've come to like the world and the world building and everything. And so yeah, this is now up there among my favorite romance series. There's also a substantial fantasy plot with like politics, fighting for a cause like in the first one, but with this one it was more fantasy based. Basically in the first book the fight and the politics was on the human plane, in the human world, while this book dealt a lot with demons and the demon politics and the demon plane. I also want to mention that there was an abusive relationship in Caladia's past, and it was discussed, and I really liked how it was discussed. I realized I didn't tap any of the over-the-top parts, but there were just some cheesy things that I ended up liking, like the names for the social media in this world. We have like Pixtagram and Clip Clop, and then there's Hexlist, like Craigslist, and then there's GhoulTube. And then also, as I said, Astaroth had amnesia, but he recognized a Taylor Swift song on the radio, and Caladia was like, oh my god, you're a Swiftie, like me too. I know some people hate pop culture references, and it can date a book, but I like it. So yeah, this was also a pleasant surprise, because I think I said at the beginning that I wasn't sure how the redemption arc and romance is going to work based on what happened in the first book, but it worked out really well and I really like how it was executed. So yeah, so glad I continue with the series. And there's also a third volume which focuses on Ben the werewolf, so yeah, I will also want to read that. So to sum up this very successful vlog, I read 3 books and I gave Payback's OH 4 stars, and it's a new series that I can continue in. Then Cackle is sitting somewhere between 4 or 5 stars. It wasn't the most enjoyable, like in the classic sense, but it definitely surprised me a lot and it was thought-provoking a lot. So I have a feeling it might stay with me the longest maybe. And now I am intrigued to read more from this author, although I'm still scared that her other books might be more horror than this. And lastly, of course, I read A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch, which I gave 5 stars to. It was so nice to return to this world. Also, I forgot to mention that this series is very steamy, very explicit, and yeah, that part was also well done. So I'm really glad I got to read these 3 books. Obviously, I still have like a lot of witchy and autumnal books in my TBR, which I might not get to this year anymore because Christmas season is slowly approaching. But yeah, that would be all for this video. Let me know if you have read any of these books, or tell me what your favorite book of this autumn was. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!